Okay, so that's what it's going to cover. And so y'all know me. I like to stop here and always just kind of discuss where you are in your learning process, if you don't mind sharing. And all of us know each other except for Captain Waffles. Did you want to introduce yourself, Captain Waffles? I don't think we have that a moment.
Sure. Yeah.
You just joined today.
So I've been working with Lisa for a couple weeks here. We met via LinkedIn. We just kind of decided let's start, messing around and doing a podcast. We've done 5 or 6 episodes on my Twitch and my YouTube, and you can catch any of those videos saved there. We have a lot of good conversations, and hopefully you can understand and or hear them. We just have some technical difficulties here and there with sound, as per usual. But so tonight I am broadcasting all of this live to Twitch, and I will rebroadcast it after the fact to YouTube, and so that people can benefit more from the visuals if they're not here, and just kind of getting the word out a little more. And we kind of decided to replace tonight with our Wednesday podcast because I think we were both a little overwhelmed with having to do 3 podcasts a week and then doing the evening show. And yeah, so I'll be here. I'm happy to answer questions if you need me. Otherwise, I'm going to remain mostly muted for the whole thing. But I am definitely listening, and I hope it goes well. So enjoy.
Appreciate the support.
Always.
All right. So, ladies, I'll go back to you and we'll start from the top, if that's okay, Mink. I'd always like to know what you've been up to since the last time we chatted. So, where are you at in your learning journey?
I actually kind of ADHD'd out a little bit, and I ventured out. I haven't actually progressed
Ooh.
in this at all, but I've done like different research on a ton of different ways to make passive income. So I'll be starting to check those out soon. I'm kind of excited. Some of them are random. Some of them sound dumb. Some of them I'm like, that might actually work. So
Yep.
yeah, but this is still near and dear to my heart, trying to figure it out too. So I'm always going to be here. So
Wonderful. Well, you're doing the right thing. I would say a lot of people go into what they feel is like this like super intense research mode once they start really seeing their pathway, I would say. And it sounds like you're starting to see your pathway, and that's really neat. But that's totally normal. So much
and
research.
it's fun that you guys, do it, you space it out because it gives me the time to kind of absorb and retain the information that you give us, and then kind of use that over the next week, I guess. So,
Oh, how
yeah.
neat. Yeah, I love it. Thank you for being here. All right, peace.
Hey everyone. I joined. Uh, I guess you could say I joined the Wednesday, our little Wednesday meetings last week, and I learned about storage, cold storage and hot storage, and I had a few questions about cold storage. Lisa went, you know, behind the scenes and got me some more additional information that I was able to read up on and learn a bit more. I'm completely new to crypto, the world of crypto, and I don't really know exactly where to start or how to start. So learning about the cold wallets and the hot wallets was a great way for me to kick things off. And now I'm going to learn about blockchain, which I've
Yay.
heard so much about, but I'm so confused. So I think this is really great.
Hi, Bianca.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you. I'm trying to figure out this interface here. Where am I?
So it's really weird. It's like down at the bottom left, um, and you'll see your name, and then like you can mute yourself if necessary, and all the little jazz down there. Do you see it?
I do not.
Are you on? Wait, are you on mobile or PC or computer? I guess.
Mobile, that's what it was, is at the top.
Ah, okay, good. How you doing?
Okay. I'm muting now if you need me to.
No, you're great. You came in at the perfect time because I always like to kind of before we get into what we're about to do, we're going to talk all about blockchain, but I always like to kind of check in where people are in their learning journey. And I know it's been a little bit for you. So how are you doing? And if you don't mind sharing, where are you at in your learning journey?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Just logged off of work right now, so joined as soon as I could. I'm currently very new in my learning journey, but I do listen a lot to podcasts and what other people say, so I have a general understanding. I understand the blockchain mostly because I work in the data space,
Oh,
so
very
I
neat.
understand the concept of how it works.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. And what do you do in the data space, if you don't mind me asking?
Data science.
Oh, cool. That's definitely in high demand right now. Um, well, that is wonderful. So what we're going to do today is essentially go through all that, and we're going to start talking about like the basics of smart contracts. I'll share some information about if you guys, I don't know how deeply you guys want to start learning about this stuff, or if you guys want to maybe at one day start writing smart contracts. But what's really neat, before I really get started, what's really neat about the landscape in crypto and blockchain right now is people want you to learn. So they're getting creative. For example, the Flow blockchain, one of the blockchains that supports Rarible NFTs, actually created this game mechanic, a kind of a game way to learn how to create smart contracts, to code like blockchain smart contracts. So I guess what I'm saying is just it's really neat, and I love the concept of blockchains. And I think I always like starting from the bottom, so if that's okay, to make sure we're all on the same page. And I was also just describing to everybody that, uh-oh, did something happen? I just hear noises and I never know. Okay, we're good. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just talk through these points. What exactly is blockchain? The reason I chose this, just real quick, Bianca, is that it's full of information. Here, let me piece this to everybody too. Full of information. I thought it was a really great presentation. I thought instead of writing my own thing, why not just utilize the information? It's available on the web, and I trust this source, so I'm going to share it in our chat lounge. And there you are. So if you want to follow along and you don't want to watch my screen share, you're more than welcome to. What I'm going to do is start with what is blockchain technology. We'll pause here, and now you're going to see words like it is an open distributed ledger that can record transactions between two parties efficiently in a variable and permanent way. I think this is a great description of what the blockchain is, because in considering what each aspect of crypto is, the blockchain should be considered a ledger. If you're thinking about it in any which way, you should be considering it a ledger. And that's a really great way to think about how transaction works. So here they use the terms open, distributed, ledger, peer-to-peer, and permanent. So I'm going to start from the top. So open means that I can write my own contract and I can put it onto the blockchain. So that it gives just really variable access to people to create transactions onto the blockchain. That's really what it means. Distributed, now a blockchain in and of itself, and I know we're going to talk about this in the future, but typically the model of a blockchain should either be right now proof of stake, which is to develop out a blockchain and validate these transactions in this ledger. People either need to stake, meaning they need to put up money to be able to be a validator, or they need to mine. So in either way, you're going to consider it a blockchain. But when we get further in these discussions, that those terms are going to become really, really important. Now, a ledger, we talked about a ledger in a banking system. That's really just anything that annotates the transactions, details the transactions, and does so in a way. Here, what makes the blockchain interesting, really interesting for people, is that it does it in a way that's shared. Not really ever before in history have we been able to share transactions in such a way where everybody can see them and validate them, and that we can trust that that validation is secure, and we can trust that that transaction itself is secure. That's never happened in our history. And I think that's the groundbreaking nature of what we're seeing here, and what we call the blockchain, is that typically what this process or all of these processes would be centralized under huge conglomerates, and then those people would, use specific companies, and then you would never really have access to any of it unless they wanted you to see it. That's not what this is, and I think that's what everybody feels is like the really uh, wild nature of the blockchain, is that it almost, that's where it kind of gives the power to the people, because it takes that power away from the so centralized entity and puts it back into the hands of the people. This is our network in a way. It's like they have their own network and now we have ours, and now we can run transactions through our own network as people, which is really neat. And that's when you go to like peer-to-peer, P2P, you'll think about that as a peer-to-peer. What that is any two people, two networks, two things connecting and making a transaction. It's typically what that means. And it's done through a shared system that's safe. So essentially, like you and another person walking into a room, you two deciding on the transaction, you shaking hands within that room, then you walking out of that room, and the transaction lives on the blockchain, and you two leave with what you intended to leave with. Maybe one leaves with money and the other leaves with an NFT. That is the concept of a P2P. Is a safe shared manner in which you'll translate that transaction from one person to another. And then the permanency of blockchain is that is actually written in the contract, and then you can actually see that forever and ever and ever. So that so long as the internet exists, I suppose, you'll be able to validate that transaction happened, and that's really, really, really important. If you think about that, how we'll talk a lot about how that's going to change the world, but the permanency of a transaction is huge, especially when you get like into more luxury materials and shipping and a lot of those things. But like the permanency of a transaction, to be able to validate where something came from is where it actually should have come from. That's huge. Too often things can get in the wrong hands now, and this will at least create some permanency and validation. So I want to stop here. I know you probably use a lot of big words, but I want to we really just have to give you an idea of what the blockchain is. Does everybody feel like they understand? If not, what questions may we have at this stage?
Lisa, um,
Yep.
does the blockchain only work for NFT transactions, or does it also work for like purchasing crypto or
Yes.
trading crypto?
So the blockchain is kind of like the core network in which everything is logged. And yes, it's used for NFTs, it's used for crypto. People are even making program or applications that make use of the permanency of blockchains. So they're building on top of the blockchain. You kind of want to think like maybe the blockchain is the city, in a lot of ways. Like that's where everything is intended to be built up upon, and NFTs are one portion of that, and crypto is one portion of that.
So in order to be a validator,
Hmm.
or I guess someone who's either, I'm assuming, making transactions on the blockchain, you have to have some sort of money or credit that kind of proves you're like a safe person to interact with.
Yes. A
And
validator. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, you go first.
Yes, that's absolutely, you absolutely nailed it. There's a trust basis that has to be created in the validation process. Now, the validation process is still distributed. meaning they don't know what transactions they're getting. They can't like interrupt those transactions, but you still have to be able to trust that the validators have want to be there and to do the work because they have to have infrastructure to do the work. I'll give you an example. Remember last week we talked about like helium mining.
Yeah.
So my infrastructure to mine the crypto helium on that blockchain is
Wait,
that actual. Sorry.
can you define the term mining?
Yes, I absolutely can. Mining is going to be how can I explain? Okay, blockchain. Okay, so let's take Bitcoin mining for example. Now, Bitcoin mining is an actual software. It's a process. You actually they take these huge computers and they buy these servers. And the distributed nature of them is that any one of those servers could be used at any time. And so the more you have, the more validations you're doing. And the more validations you're doing, the more you actually get in return for doing those validations. So I try to make it less complicated. It's really it's not a complicated. It's just hard to explain in a lot of ways.
Is it like
sorry.
is it almost like you're you're I guess using these I guess you're using these computers and servers to create more space for transactions to happen on the blockchain?
Yes,
Is that
that's exactly right. That's a perfect way to put it.
okay?
We as just regular people are creating the blockchain. The blockchain is
Okay.
created distributedly by normal people, everyday people, and that's why they call it like the blockchain is for the people or of the people.
Mhm.
Um, is a lot of it is because yeah, you're absolutely right. Is that distributed nature is created by the people who are participate in it. Now you can participate in different ways. Like I could invest in a crypto, or I could potentially mine that crypto. You know, some people, the mining process is it can be very technical. You have to get a node, and then you have to make sure that you're running that node to be an authenticator to mine that crypto. But you're absolutely right in your assessment of it.
Okay. And then I guess the like is there if you're running a server that creates more space on the blockchain for validators to get on, are you in control of who those validators are, or are they just I guess random people?
So no, you're not in control. However, a lot of those them use governance, like a DAO. Like so, they use a process of voting that sets like responsibilities and limitations about like how many validators there can be, potentially maybe what the minimum is of participation to be a validator. I'm sure there's rules set in place. It really depends on the blockchain too, on how intricate the mining process is. And if you don't mind, I'm going to just real quickly go back to that helium miner because I think it's a good real life example of kind of how a normal person could mine. So I myself am mining, and I'm doing so by broadcasting a 5G signal. And in addition to broadcasting the 5G signal, my little machine there that I've bought, which is about $400. So I had that investment made right into the product. That investment, every time that my thing just sits there and makes money now. So my little old mean is just over here mining because I had made the investment in the technology that allows me to become a validator on that network. And a lot of times that's what it's going to be. It's going to be what is the tech that allows for mining. Now there's proof of work and proof of stake, which is like a whole nother level of that. But
Hey, Lisa.
that's yeah.
Why don't I jump in here for a sec? Because you guys have kind of been going back and forth on this whole mining and proof of stake concept, and it's something that I've actually studied a fair amount. So here's the general vicinity, or idea of how mining versus staking works, especially from our point of view as a retail individual. And you can participate in either one of them at any dollar value that you are, you have the machines to physically do. In general, a miner is sitting there doing complex algorithmic equations to randomly guess a hash pointer, which is basically what is going to point them back to the previous transactions that were logged on a block in the chain. Each time a block is created, it makes another pointer, and somebody else has to find and solve that problem. So when they're mining, they're literally using massive amounts of computer processing power to guess the answer to a solution, which has no better way to figure it out other than guessing. And so they're constantly running all these numbers, guessing over and over and over and over. And when one of them guesses the right thing, they're the one that's going to produce the next block. The block is generally randomly assigned based on the network. It assigns it to somebody. And so the only reason that they're not sitting there, producing bad blocks and saying, I've got more Bitcoin than the person, who actually did the transaction now, stealing Bitcoin from here to there, is that they're financially incentivized not to. So whenever they do something wrong, the rest of the network is sitting there competing to do the same problem. And if one node all of a sudden says a transaction is different, the rest of the network all has all the exact same information as a distributed ledger. So it's all the same information across thousands of computers. And so if all of a sudden one of these computers says something wrong, that one doesn't get their rewards from doing the work. So that's the proof of work. That's mining. That's what everybody's referring to when they say mining. A lot of different companies are starting to call things like what you're doing with the helium miners mining, which it kind of is and it kind of isn't. But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I see what you're getting with that.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm not leading him down the wrong path.
Right. And then proof of stake goes down a whole different kind of concept, but it's still using the same idea of financial disincentive of performing poorly. So if you perform poorly, they start using a mechanism called slashing. And so if you are logging transactions that are incorrect compared to the majority of the rest of the network, then all of a sudden they're going to start slashing some of your supply. When you provide a supply as a staker, a node operator, it's normally a very large number. Like some of them, if you're an ADA staker, which is Cardano or other, large blockchains like that, it's going to be, $100,000. And so you've got $100,000 sitting there, and
invested.
the way they make it so that you can't just like throw a bunch of money in and do something wrong and then fuck up and leave is it's called a lockup period, and so a lot of the times it's going to be 14 days, 21 days until you can get your money back out of the network. So it's locked up, it's forced to be there, and you cannot change it until that 14 days. So, you have to sit there and wait until all of the other validators say, okay, your transactions are correct or wrong before, you can then take whatever money you stole or, earned out of the network, if that helps.
Yeah, it does. I do have one last question, and that's when you're doing transactions on the blockchain. I know you said it was like a safe and like a verifiable way of making transactions. How do you know if you're making a transaction with someone who's not, who may be trying to like rip you off or steal your money? Is
that
there any
still
way to?
happens. Yeah, the blockchain itself does have like one validate. It has a validator in place, but it's not there to determine whether or not the contract was written in a way that shouldn't have been written. In a lot of ways, it can validate that it's written the way that it expects to be written, but that would, if it expected too much, then that would actually curb how people would be able to write those contracts. I'm trying to think if I could answer that a better way. Can you repeat the question one more time, and I'm going to reword it?
Gosh, I can't remember, but how can we make sure that we're making the right transactions with the
Yes.
right people?
Okay. So it depends on what you're doing. And the reason I say that is because as a purchaser, as a buyer, as somebody on that portion of the transaction, I would want to validate the contract. And if it was an NFT, there are a variety of things that I would want to go through to validate that the person that created the contract is legitimate and that the contract can in no way be changed. You have to consider that the blockchain is just there to accept the contract, to ledger the contract, make sure it's permanent. But the contract itself it's like any other contract in the world. So if you're going to engage with a contract, you kind of know what's going on in the contract. That's why at some point here, I hope that we can start reading and doing all those things with smart contracts, those contracts, to show you guys how pretty easy it is to read them, so that you guys can gain confidence in the types of smart contracts that you're engaging with. I say this because things can go wrong. An example of that is an NFT project. I know that somebody, I guess, somebody had given them an NFT, and then they had sold the NFT, and that NFT had a contract in it, and they didn't look at the contract, and the contract set it up so that it would siphon off a specific amount of that currency every so often. And since that person didn't, like, it was like a fault. You see what I'm saying? Like they needed to go back and undo that. So when you're engaging with the blockchain, with NFTs, with crypto, with whatever it is, you really want to do so in a safe way. And there's a lot of ways we can talk about how we can do that. For the most part, I would say just from a basic sense, it's learning how to read the contract and know what you're getting yourself into.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick,
hmm
the term contract is being thrown around really, really loosely right now. When you are working with smart contracts, all of that is totally applicable. If you are doing, simple peer-to-peer transaction via Bitcoin, via any of the cryptocurrencies where you're operating on a wallet, it can be hot wallet, it can be cold wallet, doesn't matter. One of the things that you definitely want to make sure you're doing is, sure, you're like, okay, even if it's just from your wallet to your wallet, you're sitting there and you're like, I want to move this money, this much, whatever. Just double check and verify everything. Your addresses first and foremost. So when you
Right.
copy and paste your addresses from one wallet to the next, no matter where you put it, just make sure that you can pull up both screens at the same time and look back and forth and verify the first and the last 5 of the addresses.
The
So
digits of the address. Yeah.
yes. So just verify that, in the process of moving the text from one place to the other, that you do actually get all the right text in that, text box, and that it's not going to go out into the nothing verse and it's lost forever, because that's where missing transactions go. If you do try and send a transaction to the wrong place,
Accidentally.
yeah, accidentally, it's just gone. There's nothing you
But
can do about
I
it
think she was
in that sec.
referring more to like the transactionary nature of it, not necessarily that.
Okay. Yeah. That's all. Go on.
Yeah. All right. So let's go through their step-by-step overview, kind of, now that we went through a lot of like different concepts. In their first step, a user requests a transaction. And the second step, a block representing the transaction is created. And third, the block is broadcast to all the nodes of a network. Number 4, all of the nodes validate the block and the transaction. 5, the block is added to the blockchain. And then 6, the transaction gets verified and executed. So it's essentially kind of a good roundup of everything that we just discussed in a very deep way, I would say, of how the blockchain works in a step-by-step method. Does that help put the pieces together a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Here are the benefits that we've got. Faster settlement. So validation is sometimes what they call a settlement process. So it's faster than manual process to validate. So immutable, the transactions cannot be undone if they're already on the blockchain. And so that's another version of the permanency, right? Immutable and permanency. Shared and distributed. And just so you guys know, I'm going clockwise. Blockchain technology offers a shared and distributed ledger that is open for all users. So we've definitely discussed that. And we've discussed how it's decentralized, not dependable on any one server. I think that's important to know. It's the base technology, and no one has authority over the system. I think we need to say that in jest, because there are some cryptos where you can get whaled, and some there are where specific people can own a majority of it. But when they're talking about just a blockchain, I can see what they mean by it's decentralized. But I just want to make sure we don't like say that could never ever happen. More secure, so it's much safer than traditional methods. It increases network capacity. And by the way, the security increased trusts in transactions, and that's really huge. Increased network capacity, more capacity than traditional networks. And when they were talking about traditional networks, I believe they're referring against payment networks, those types of finance networks. They call them traditional networks. I don't see them why they would call traditional networks. But so here, that's just kind of going over a lot of what we just talked about. We'll quickly go over a public versus a private blockchain. Let's go over the public blockchain. I think that would be the more open networked system. And in that system, all the devices can freely access without any kind of permission. And that ledger that public blockchain is creating is shared and transparent. And then a private blockchain is a permissions blockchain. A user has been permitted by the blockchain authority before they can access the network. That user might join only if she gets an invitation. Trying to think of really good real world examples of what that would look like a permissioned private blockchain. Nomad, what comes to mind when you first hear private, the permissions private blockchain? Can you think of one that's private?
Yeah, I can't think of a specific token that represents any of this. The first thing that comes to mind is going to be VeChain. VeChain is designed as an industry ledger. It's meant to work with shipping and warehouses and stuff like that. And so that's an instance of when having a private blockchain may be a thing where no, they don't need a bunch of random who's of crypto validating all their transactions. They need their own systems. And so you could actually think of AWS as kind of a similar concept where they've got thousands and thousands of computers across several states, but everything that happens within those servers is private, under the lease of whoever is using their server space. And so that's actually where a lot of blockchains have their validators and their hash rate at. So that's kind of how you can think of that. And in those cases, it really isn't something that you're probably going to interact with, ever throughout your blockchain career.
I was going to say it's not something that we're going to typically. But however, as we explore these sort of use cases, I think it's really important to kind of know what that looks like. And I appreciate the perspective of saying that it's like AWS. And if nobody's familiar here, that's an Amazon distributed network system that a lot of businesses used. And when a lot of people say things are centralized, that's because half the world uses Amazon systems, and they pay Amazon to use those systems. So I guess where we're saying is when they say private, it's more like it's a private use of a blockchain. They don't need the public use of it.
Yeah.
Are there any questions that we may have so far?
Quick note, if anyone is familiar with Solana, Solana gets a lot of flack in that department for, not necessarily being the most distributed network out there. If you've been paying attention to what Solana has been doing over the last several months, there have been several instances of them shutting it down. That's one of the big benefits of most crypto platforms and blockchain platforms is that you cannot shut it down. There's no
Right.
off button. There's no one individual who can say, stop it now. It's not like the stock market that literally has switches in the basement. They're like 100 years old. They're massive. Yeah,
Really? Turn
ask
it
somebody for
off.
pictures. Google it. It's pretty cool looking. But yeah, Solana is kind of on the edge of not really being decentralized and kind of,
Yeah, and
but
that's yeah, good
it's
to
by
bring it up.
design.
Right.
So it's just something to kind of think about. I
And
still
that's
like
why I
Solana.
think that's why I like blockchain. It's like the more like so ladies, the more that we're like familiarized with all the concepts and just understand things at a basic level, then I think that's the great way to start. Especially because as you start to do some research into some blockchains that sound like really interesting to you, um, depending on maybe what you do for a living. Um, so yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Okay, let me come back to the screen sharing. Any questions? I don't want to pass over that. I feel like I asked that and didn't. Okay. All right. How are we doing on time? So I figure we're not going to get through this whole thing. I figure we get through half of it. We can just go through the next half next week, and then we'll record it again, so that if anybody misses it, they can get access to it. This talks about the decentralized network, versus the distributed network. And I think this is a really great visual because you are going to hear these terms thrown around a lot: centralized, decentralized, and distributed. So let's start with the centralized. This is what like our whole world has accumulated around for so long. And all of these little nodes are different companies. Um, and they're all centralizing that information. And then it a lot of times it's out of reach of most people anyway. Decentralized, and again, they say it's under a single authority. A decentralized network is no single authority server, but there are nodes, and I think this is a good way to look at what the nodes would look like. When we talk about nodes, we're really talking about one smaller, tiny centralized point in a very big system. And here in this middle example, there's only 6 nodes, but in these systems, there can be a lot, right? And then at a distributed network, oh, let me stop there. It says no single authority on the decentralized controls the nodes. They all have individual entity. And then in a distributed network, every node is independent and interconnected with each other. And I think the technicality of this is I wouldn't worry too much about the technicality of it. What I would do is just get the concepts of it, and why somebody might say it's decentralized or it's distributed. A lot of times you're going to hear the term distributed in like networking. I don't know if you're not going to hear it as much here. You're going to hear decentralized here a lot more. I'm trying to think of where and when we would hear distributed. Maybe they'll give us an idea. Let me go one more. Nope, they didn't say that. But I love this. If there's anything that we can get before we leave today, because I don't want to keep you more than an hour tonight, is I love this. This is page 8. And by the way, this was shared in the lounge. So let's go over some of these terms. So before I go back, Crypto, is there, before I move forward, I just want to make sure there's nothing that I'm missing in regards to like real world use terms, other than what I'm talking about for the use of distributed that we would hear in our world, the blockchain world. I think you're really going to hear the decentralized.
So in general, um, the places you're going to hear distributed is amongst the types of ledgers, and the type of network. So Bitcoin itself, the actual data that consists of the entire Bitcoin blockchain is only, it's like 35 gigs or something. It's really not very big. And that's just due to the compressed nature of, what a transaction consists of. If you look at Ethereum, it's much bigger. But so when you have a distributed system, and especially in this case, distributed ledger, there's a big difference in, especially on Bitcoin specifically, between a node and a miner. And it gets a little more gray when you switch to proof of stake networks like, God, what's proof of stake right now? Cardano and
Dono,
Cosmos.
yeah.
Um, but that's a whole different thing. So a node for Bitcoin and any proof of work is actually just going to be a storage of the data. Those nodes
Okay.
are not necessarily validating any of the transactions. All they are doing is taking the information that has been agreed upon by the network validators and storing that.
Distributing it. Yep, I'm with you.
And
Okay.
so all that data is in 1,000 different places. And this is really important when you look at crypto projects like Akash, which is basically doing exactly what Amazon Web Service is doing, AWS, except for
A cash.
Akash,
Excuse me.
AKASH. Akash, it means
A
sky,
K A S
I
H.
think,
A
in
K. Okay, I'm with you.
but and so Akash is using a distributed network. So they're distributing the
Oh,
data that
they're
is
creating an
in the network.
AWS of. Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
so crazy.
exactly.
So this
So
is really like level 2 blockchain stuff that we don't really need to know right now.
yeah,
But it's super interesting if you're like if you get kind of what we're the gist of what we're talking about, then roll with it. If not, don't worry about it because it really is like level 2, level 3, even.
dude, Akash and all that, that's actual Web3. That's not even like the
That's
vague
actual
question.
Web3.
It's
Yeah.
real Web3. It's all distributed and decentralized, and it's super amazing. I love throwing that name out there whenever I can because people don't seem to know about it, and it's just super small. So I'll
Mhm.
go back to my corner.
No, you're great. I think I tag you in when I need you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go to this list and then we'll take a little pause again because there's a lot going on in this list. Must know blockchain terms, and it's quite of an interesting list given that it starts with airdrop. Now, airdrop is more of a crypto thing. You're going to see airdrops a lot of times in crypto and NFTs. And the way they describe it is a process of distributing free crypto coins to a general public. Now, sometimes in NFTs, you're going to see that people actually airdrop NFTs, so the actual NFT to somebody's wallet. And what airdropping means is sending it to the wallet without the need for you're not paying them anything, right? However, a lot of times airdrops are used as marketing mechanisms. So sometimes it's what are you as a person may need to potentially interact with this NFT or brand or cryptocurrency, meaning you may have to do specific things to become eligible for an airdrop. Now, the eligibility is going to be determined by whoever determines it, right? Sometimes, for example, when a new coin comes out or a new blockchain comes out, a method at which they get people to try to adopt their blockchain or move into their blockchain is to airdrop some of their cryptocurrency so that people will immediately have use for it. If not, people, it would be much harder for these people to get a lot of people moved into their cryptocurrency and potentially moving more money through their currency if they didn't airdrop. So sometimes you really need to think about airdropping as a marketing mechanism and not just, hey, it's free. Sometimes it may legitimately be free, but we say free here, we really mean there's an exchange of activities usually on somebody's part, and it's usually the part, your part if you want the airdrop. The altcoin. Actually, I want to ask you all, would it be better to stop after each one, or would you like me to go through this whole page? I'd love to. I wish I could get a vote. Any opinions on that?
It doesn't matter to me. I don't mind you going through them one by one and kind of just explaining, because you're kind of explaining a bit more than what they have listed there. So
Right.
I'm getting a bit more out of the each term. So I'm
How
okay
about this?
with either.
Interrupt me. Interrupt me if you need some. How about that? Does that sound
Yeah,
okay? Okay.
yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect. Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that input. All right. So an altcoin. Um, this is this is I don't think is that really the way you can term an altcoin? An altcoin is any cryptocurrency other than it Bitcoin. I think that term has taken on a little bit of a different meaning.
That's
An
so up to the
altcoin,
populace.
yeah, and so it's almost like this is a little bit older, like when Bitcoin was really like the majority stakeholder, and it had its real legitimacy. Like I bet you this was made in 2018. Um,
Dude, that
so
term
and
changed a lot over just the last 9 months. Like
yeah,
even
it
since
did.
last like March, yeah, huge difference in the connotation.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to explain what an altcoin is now. Um, so we have a lot of centralized exchanges now, and some centralized exchanges put like legitimacy factors on cryptos and set standards for cryptos to be listed within their centralized exchange. Um, in some way, they're forming this anything that's not really within the realm of something that can be secured within a centralized system. Am I saying this right? It would be an altcoin. I'm trying to think of another way of saying this
Like, can I
because
make this real
that's what
simple?
it, please do.
Okay, so in general, anything that is not Bitcoin and Ethereum is considered an altcoin. We tear apart that whole segment of altcoin
ETH shouldn't get that though.
and whatever as a couple of different things. Like we've got what we call shit coins, meme coins. Altcoins is generally just the more polite term for shit coins. But
Right.
like at the same time, like Dogecoin and Shiba and all the dog coins and all that is generally going to be considered a shit coin. Altcoins is going to be anything with a cap under like a billion or maybe yeah, billion's a pretty good number. Anything
Is
outside of
that
like the
I'm not
top
so sure.
20 is pretty much considered an altcoin at this point. But I
This is
mean,
just blowing my brain how much it's changed so
yeah,
much. Because even then, I mean, how did ETH even get added to that? There's no definition for that because just because ETH has a, I mean, I see what you're saying. It has a market cap of over a specific amount, but I'm just seeing if there's a, yeah, we're in the Wild West here.
oh yeah, everything's made up and
Refers
there
to
are no
any type of, yeah,
rules.
it still says here, here, it does say any type of cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, so ETH,
There you go.
so, but it doesn't say how they even got added to this sort of non-altcoin status. So that's what's so great about it.
Yeah,
They don't actually tell you what gets you off of the altcoin status other than, you're right, probably just,
it's general
did you make
adoption
up
and
that
general
market
well
cap?
knowing. Yeah, I
Do
just
you
pulled
make,
that market cap out of my ass.
okay, I was good. And by the way, market cap is just how much money is actually invested into a coin.
Not
Like,
necessarily. Um,
no, you're right. That's probably a too
it's the
simple way
value
to put it.
of all of the coins at this current moment at the current price.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So if
You're
it's
like a
worth fifty
definition machine. I
dollars,
feel like I tap
yeah,
you in as a definition machine, and it's really nice to have.
that's what I'm here for.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you, machine. Okay. So Bitcoin, it is the first cryptocurrency. They came into existence in 2009 by Satoshi, which is Nakamoto, which is an unknown person at this stage. It's a digital currency that doesn't require a centralized authority to work or to function. And so that pseudonym, Satoshi Nakamoto, was done on purpose because they wanted to prove that you don't need a centralized authority or who to care who that person is that created it for it to be legitimate. And I think he proved it. He or she, I'm betting it's a he, but he or she. Um, It says it's a digital currency that doesn't require a centralized authority to work or to function. Now, the Bitcoin was the first proof of work blockchain, and there's two blockchains. There's going to be a proof of work blockchain and a proof of stake blockchain. This is actually, I know I mentioned this a little bit before. This is really important to know. I'm going to bring it up right now because Bitcoin is a proof of work blockchain. I'm differentiating the two because proof of work is generally mining, and proof of stake is going to be staking your money. So typically you'd stake coins. And a lot of that is going to be in the validation process of the blockchain. But the reason that I bring it up and its importance is because you're going to hear a large discussion about power usage of blockchains. And there's a large discussion that we can't really have here and now, but I will say it's not a very truthful discussion on the use of power on the part of crypto. However, a lot of times when they're talking about power use in cryptocurrency, they're going to be talking about proof of work, not proof of stake. Proof of stake is power nominal. It's not using more power than it's creating, I guess is you know what I mean? It's negated. So carbon neutral, I guess is what they call it. So proof of stake is carbon neutral, and then proof of work is not carbon neutral. But proof of work is not as bad as they make it seem, but it's not carbon neutral. That's the differentiating factor that a lot of people, that I want people to know right now, because there's a big conversation about, oh, there's so much power use in crypto. Well, no, that's not actually true. It's only in proof of work. And now we don't need to get in this conversation today, but I think there is a legitimacy for both types of blockchains, both proof of work and proof of stake. They're starting to define themselves in a lot of ways. My hope is that you see proof of work really used for currency, and then you use proof of stake used for like business use and any type of other validatory blockchain business case uses. That's just my opinion. But I say that because mining definitely, you don't want mining to just go away just because somebody thinks that maybe it has too much power consumption, and that we're mining for coins, because it's more than mining for coins. It's actually a process that has a use and a function in validating the strength and character of the transaction. So it's still very important. So if anything to come out of that, just keep in mind that Bitcoin is a proof of work blockchain. All right. DAO. You're going to hear this term a lot. They're becoming a lot more popular. And in fact, there are companies, entire companies that are being propped up now. And then I'll stop here and see if we want to stop for the night. There are entire companies that are being like propped up now, that are being created to support DAOs. DAOs themselves are decentralized autonomous organization. Now, how a DAO functions is literally being created right now as things are succeeding and failing, honestly. But the way to think about a decentralized autonomous organization is that it's intended for there to be governance amongst people that have shared interest in this organization. So let's say I create a DAO and we want to all we create a cryptocurrency, and then we decide to vote on how we manage that cryptocurrency through the decentralized organization. It is a way for a bunch of people to come together and essentially create a company it's never been able to happen before. This is really, it's a new form of business, and you're going to see a lot of DAOs pop up that my worry that I will share with everybody right now is that you're going to see decentralized DAOs pop up that are centralized. The people that are managing and owning the DAO have controlling stake in the DAO, and that completely goes against the whole what decentralized DAOs should be. And you might find that somewhere out there and see that to be very confusing. And I will say it's confusing because it is. because people are really trying to figure out how to really create a DAO structure that works really, really well. I'm trying to, let me tag you in crypto. Is there a DAO structure that you know works really, really well? If somebody's doing really well,
Oh,
you know, that DAO is just,
yeah. So,
okay.
the first thing you can kind of take from what a DAO is in general is going to be very, very similar to how a board of directors would operate with a publicly traded company. So whoever has the largest share of coins has the biggest
Mm-hmm.
voice, the biggest voting
Mm-hmm.
power. So each coin is a vote. And so when you go through, and they generally make DAOs on a proof of stake blockchain. Um, and so when you've got really, really big validators like Coinbase, Coinbase does a lot of validator nodes for proof of stake things. And as such, when you put your coins in Coinbase on their system, they then put that into their validator and use it as voting power. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
good way to decentralize things, but at the same time, if somebody buys all the coins, all of a sudden,
Right.
it's controlled by a central power. Um, but if you've got 50 coins of Cosmos, you've got 50 coins of Solana, you can go into their governance pages, which are normally pretty easy to find if you know how to stake things, and you can vote. They'll show you the proposals. They'll give you a time period in which you're allowed to vote on these things, and you can even submit your own proposals. I'm writing one right now
Yes.
for Osmosis that is as simple as any projects that are going to be on the Osmosis platform need to provide a description that is also voted on by the community. And so it's just a good way to bring community voting back into it. And it could also be used for something as simple as voting for our elected officials.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting take. Cool discussion though. Okay, I want to stop here. I know you usually only go about an hour, so how's everybody doing? I could finish this page, and then we could stop here and then finish the rest next week. Does that sound like an okay plan?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, fine.
Yep.
Awesome. I want to
Everything
talk
is
your faces
awesome.
off. Love it. Okay. DApp. This one's probably potentially maybe one of the easiest. So DApp stands for decentralized application. Um, and they run without the control of a central authority. I'm trying to think of a really good example of a DApp right away. A lot of people claim to be DApps, but they're not because it doesn't actually run without control of a central authority. By the way, you're going to hear me say that a lot. That's because there is a lot of things that are trying to be centralized within this decentralized universe. They're already trying to centralize things, and it's not without human nature, I suppose, to try to do the things that you've always done in the past. And it tends to be driven by greed. However, you'll hear me say it has a lot of centralized conditions because you're seeing a lot of people come in here and tend to centralize things. I say that because I'm trying to even think of a D app right away that doesn't have some sort of centralized authority, and I can't think of one. And I'm gonna have to tap you in again, Crypto. Do you know of one?
So the centralized authority that you're referring to can be two things. The DApp itself, and this is where a lot of people get really hung up on DApps, is that you're sitting here thinking, okay, I need to download this application into my computer or my phone, and most of the time they're not that. They're something you just run on a web page, and so the app itself might have a voted on consensus using a DAO. And so the things that are going to happen are voted on by the DAO. However, the front end of the website can be completely centralized. So,
Mm-hmm.
whoever's hosting it, whoever's, physically typing out the things that are written on that front end website, that's going to be centralized. However, what they're doing on it is not, and what's happening on the
It's not.
back end, the transactions that are processing through the protocol are going to be decentralized. So
Hmm.
it all gets kind of blurry when you really start
It
getting
does.
into it.
It's so blurry. It gets so blurry. It gets so blurry.
Yeah. Did
Cat's
that
losing
help?
it out there. Yes. It does. I don't know of a D app right away that, but the way, like, maybe I just don't like this description of it, or maybe I feel like the description is just too simple for what it is that we're dealing
Yeah.
with. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna come back next week with a good example of a solid D app that we can look at. That's what'll be a to do for me. Okay. ERC20. It's weird that it goes to ERC20. ERC20, you're going to see this on a lot of the smart contracts, but ERC20 is a technical standard for issuing tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. I don't think like this isn't really this is like level 3 stuff. I don't really think that's necessary to talk about now.
Yeah. I mean, it gets used a lot, and so it's
It's
actually
thrown
really
around.
important to know what an ERC20 is, in general, because there are
It's a technical standard.
tons and tons and tons of ERC20s. You don't really need to know what the concept behind what makes it that standard is, but basically they're using the same code to write a coin that is happening on the Ethereum blockchain. So the difference between a coin and a token is very important, and an
Right.
ERC20 is a token. And so if you go
Right.
through your crypto lists on Coinbase or FTX or wherever, and you click on one and it says it's an ERC20, that means it's a token that is being validated by the Ethereum blockchain. And that's very important to know when you start moving off of the exchanges, because you're going to have to be paying Ethereum gas fees for a token that is not necessarily Ethereum, because it
That's
is
a good way.
using
That's a good, yeah.
Ethereum to operate. Because like it's the
Right.
same idea as like paying taxes for the road, you know. You got to drive your car down the road, so the road would be would be the Ethereum blockchain, and the token would be the car, you know. So
Right.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's just
Hmm.
the important part that you need to know, is when to
That's
recognize
a good point.
what's going to spend Ethereum as a gas fee.
Right. Okay, Ether. So Ether is the fuel that powers distributed Ethereum network. I think it's a very simplified way of putting what Ether is, but this is actually brings up a very good point that I want to stop and just momentarily mention. In the world right now, data being stored and data being moved costs money. A lot of times you're not paying for that because you're selling your information to get it. Facebook is a really good example of people selling their information, actually not really realizing they're even selling their information, but that's literally what's happening. Is you're selling your information in exchange for being able to store all your photos, in exchange for being able to store all that there. So you're using, in some ways, you using their network, you're processing data across their network, and you're storing things in their storage. So I bring that up because that in some ways is currency. Data storage and data movements can in some ways be considered currency. Now, the way to think about Ether is that transactions take time, right? And they cost and money, right? The energy to process. So to be able to do that, to be able to provide that service to regular people, you're going to pay a processing fee, and that's the best way to put it, I would say. And that is what you're going to hear in the term of gas. It's essentially you're paying to drive on their distributed network, and you're using that payment to create a transaction that is permanent, and there's a good use for you paying that particular fee, but that's the reason that you're paying it. A lot of people go, what is this gas? Why am I paying it? Well, you're paying it because there's a couple more reasons. I'm not going to simplify it too much, but I just wanted to stop there and just mention how important it is to keep in mind when you go forward in crypto or whatever, is just to remember that, the storage and movement of data and information costs money, and that money has to be pulled from somewhere. And in these types of models, it's a shared distributed system. So you share how much it costs to have these transactions to be pushed through this network. That's really what it is. And you can speed it up. So you're going to see, if you ever start doing transactions here pretty soon, you can see that you can speed up a transaction on the Ethereum network. And that really means you're going to spend more to speed it up because you're placing your transaction in front of other transactions. So there are some other complications to this, but the reason that people want to be part of the blockchain is because they see the value of this ledger. They see the value of the distributed network, and they see the value of what blockchain is, and they understand that value is huge and necessary for investment, I guess would be the best way to put it. So that's the best way to say Ether is the fuel that powers distributed Ethereum network. That is a very simplified way of saying a lot of what I just said. So fiat is a government-controlled currency and is declared as legal tender. You're going to hear that word thrown around a lot because now we're differentiating from what is fiat, or what we think of as typical legal tender, and what now is cryptocurrency. So that's going to be the definition, and that's why you're going to hear fiat thrown out a lot, because they're trying to make a differentiation between fiat, what is your typical, and what is now.
Can I throw something in there?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Whoever that was, go ahead and say that again, and then I'll throw in my bit.
I just wanted to ask, so like our currency would be considered fiat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay,
Yes.
so I've heard a couple rumors that they're trying to like regulate crypto. Would that make all of the crypto then fiat?
Good question. She's thinking like a master.
But that is a very good question.
That is an amazing question.
So, first thing what I got into, and if you guys get a chance, I suggested everyone go ahead and pick up a copy of the Bitcoin Standard by Seyfedin Amos. He's an Austrian economist. He's not Austrian. That's a school of thought, Austrian economy. And so,
Wait, before you go further, are we going to answer her question, or
yes,
are you answering? Okay, perfect.
yes, it
Just
is,
want to
it
make
is
sure.
a roundabout way.
Okay, and can you spell that for us?
Can't for my life. It's just
Or
the
just
Bitcoin
kind of get
Standard is the name of the book.
okay.
That's
Oh,
all you need to
yes,
know.
yes, you mentioned it. The Bitcoin Standard. Got it.
Yep. Fantastic book. Great author. And so he does a really, really good job. The book is not about cryptocurrency. The book is about an explanation of currency, just money in general. And so the term fiat comes from the Latin. It means to be done with. It is a promise of value in terms of the U.S. dollar or any currency's use case, is a promise of value, and that value comes from the ability to store value and transfer it equally across a distance easily. And the value itself is actually backed, or was backed, by gold at one point, and so it was a representation of another thing. So essentially, a fiat is a promise of value from a governing body, in this case, the government. And so, yes and no on your question there. Cryptocurrency is never going to technically become a fiat. And if it was, it already would be, due to the fact that El Salvador has named Bitcoin as legal tender. But it was not produced, nor is it backed by a government promise. So therefore, it is not a fiat. And the joke is kind of around the industry that fiat is kind of a derogatory term for money, and we really like that.
Yeah, but I would say in regards to like the government mandate or
Yeah.
whatever, I wouldn't worry about that too much. They're still trying to figure out what to do. They don't know what to do yet. What was signed today was just like a declaration that they're going to do something. They just don't know what they're going to do yet. And I do know that innovation was is very high. And I will say India just turned completely 180. What was it, like not
Couldn't
even like 30
do
days
that
ago?
once a month.
I know, but like, but I think that maybe this might be the 180 to end all the 180s. I don't know. That's just my thing. I do believe that they truly understand that there is value here. They can't either. They need to get smarter people or something to figure out how they can
Oh, India's
materialize
full of
off
smart
of it.
people. It's just
Well,
also
maybe they need
full
to
of
hire them
like,
in the government
yeah.
because they could, because they really, it's almost like they can't figure out how to get their arms around it. And so they're mad about it and they keep stomping around like they cannot get their arms around it. And in some ways we're so happy about that. But each time that India, and this is important if you're trading crypto, each time that India makes an announcement, it does impact crypto, period. And number two, one, because the crypto is trading 24/7. It does not turn off. It does not turn off. I think that's something to remember too. Like unlike the stock market where there's like a break and when you're trading on international, you're actually intentionally on trading on international. You have to worry about international tax, like all that stuff. Like, no, this is totally different. This is crazy around all the things that the government is used to. And a lot of these, they want to let it happen, but in some ways they have to protect. They want to protect purchasers. They want to protect buyers. There's a lot of scams. There's a lot of things that are happening, and there's a lot of being There's a lot of money being washed through crypto too.
Hmm.
Washing is a whole different beast to talk about, but there's being a lot of money washed through crypto as well because it's easy to wash money through crypto. And in a lot of ways, washing money through crypto is not a good thing for crypto. And I say that very kindly because anytime in a market you have the desire for, number one, you have a market that runs 24/7, but then two, you have if you create any desire in somebody to want to sell for a reason of greed, they're going to sell more often. So you're going to see a lot more volatility in the market because they have the wash sale rule here. So when they talk about like regulations, I would say I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would say that they're going to try to figure out the way to tiptoe around it, or I don't know. I guess I'm just not too worried yet. More than anything, I think it's just they're trying to figure out what to do, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't have any money anyways. I was just curious how it would work. you know,
Girl, that's how we're here. We're all here to figure out how to do that better.
right?
I will say, me too. It's a practice. I'm telling you right now, it's a practice. I'm still learning lessons about stuff that I was like, why didn't I know that forever ago? Like, I didn't really have my parents, as lovely as they are. They really did not teach me a lot about being like any of this financial information. Like I never learned financial education from them, and I'm betting a lot of us didn't. So it's okay to learn it now, and I think it's being open about it. It's good because a lot of us are in that spot. Okay, we'll just do this, and then I'll stop blabbering your heads off. ICO. ICO stands for Initial Coin Offering. That's used by startups to raise funds by selling tokens. Those, I don't think those are regulated currently. Maybe they are in somewhere. I got to figure out. I'm no worried about regulations right now. I'll get into that, but you're going to see this a lot when they're creating a coin and selling that a coin at an initial price. What's that?
Go ahead and get him that. Go ahead and get him that.
What's that? What am I hearing? Okay, and then mainnet is working blockchain. That's like level 3 stuff. That gets into the networking part of it. But a mainnet is a working blockchain product that also provides the ability to transfer digital currencies between users in a blockchain environment. So we will stop there for the night. I wanted to see if there's any questions. And then we can just continue on of whatever it was next week, if that's okay with y'all. And then if you want to show up, obviously, I'm here if you want to be here.
Woo!
Yeah,
We'll
thanks
definitely
everybody.
be here.
Oh, I love it.
Well,
See?
that was fun. Does anybody have questions? Feel free. Don't be shy.
I did put a question down. Can you invest and mine crypto like the same one, or is that just does it not make sense to do that?
Lisa, you want to get that one, or you want me to grab it? Hello, Lisa? Bueller? All right, I guess I'll take that one. So when you mine a coin, and the entire purpose of mining is to validate the transactions, but to get people to do that, they are incentivized by being provided with coins as a reward. So when you produce a block into the chain that is accepted by the network, you then get rewarded your coins. So the answer is yes. You're just holding those coins in the same fashion as you would any other day of the week. You know, whether or not you bought them from an exchange, another individual, they're gifted to you, or you mined them. You're still holding them, and they are still worth the same value as they would be in any other scenario. The value of the coin changes on a daily basis only compared to other assets. And so that would be like the US dollar. So you look at Bitcoin is, $40,000 versus the US dollar. If you start trading more, a lot of the big traders trade Bitcoin versus Ethereum. And so the price of a Bitcoin is like 18 Ethereum or something like that. So you're really just getting into, how does it hold value, or what is it worth, or when is it worth, and that whole conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just another way of getting more coins.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Bueller? Oh, Lisa left.
Thank you, Jack.
I didn't even realize she was gone. Lisa?
Maybe she's had some technical difficulties.
Yeah. Well, I'm still here. If anybody has questions, I'll hang out for a few minutes until Lisa tells me we're done or whatever. I'm just kind of sitting here chilling. So, any other questions? I mean, we talk about this stuff all day, every day. So we've got a lot of information that we can provide to you.
I was wondering if you have any advice for someone who's looking to mint some art.
Okay. Yes, that is absolutely something I can talk to you about. First question is, what is your goal?
I'm just trying to test the waters and see if there would be any interest
Okay.
in it. I'm also like, at the same time, I'm like trying to set up social media and stuff because I'm real new. So
Oh, absolutely. We're all new, and we're all just kind of learning here together. And this will be kind of a shill and an answer at the same time. And yes, I can help you. I can show you where to, but you need to answer a bunch of questions. And I'm still kind of working on these questions myself. I just got a physical print of one of my art pieces that is going to be in an NFT in today. It looks super cool. I can post it in the thing for everyone in a second. But or you can just check my Twitter. But so what you need to do is decide on what blockchain, and to decide on what blockchain you want to mint on, you kind of have to decide the purpose of your art. Are you just going to be selling art for selling art? Are you trying to build a community, build a brand, step forward and provide some sort of utility with your NFTs? Like, for example, I mean, if you're familiar with Axie Infinity, the Axies themselves are NFTs that you then play the game with, and you get rewarded with other, coins or tokens in that ecosystem, and then you can get value from that. Or in a lot of cases, like she was talking about with airdrops, if you own certain NFTs, you might get airdrops on, a certain network, or, some other project will give you a whitelist. That's kind of a utility that you can provide by somebody buying your NFT. And so those are kind of something you need to decide on before you start minting things. But if you just want to say, screw it, let's just go out and we'll mint one as a test, or fuck around with the network and see how it all works. It's super easy. You can hop on whichever network. It's going to be really expensive if you want to use Ethereum, just because of those high transaction fees. Solana, Cosmos, and our Cardano are going to be a lot cheaper. Same with Wax, which is going to be the sandbox metaverse platform. Is going to be nice and cheap. And so you're going to go out and you're going to try and find yourself like a minting tool if you don't want to have to write a bunch of contract stuff yourself. And from there, most of the times, if it's a good tool, it'll be as simple as your usual like Instagram upload.
What?
You go through and you click, add your JPEG, and Lisa will go further into IPFS stuff with you, because that's just definitely more her realm than mine. But you'll host the image somewhere. The NFT will then reference the image hosted. And then when you mint it, the smart contract is just going to basically put a position into the blockchain. It's just going to say, okay, here, this is what is, the data that's available on the blockchain, and it references other data. So, I mean, we started this whole thing trying to come up with that answer of where can we send people to just like mint an NFT real quick. And so that was kind of the whole thing that got us started, and why we're here, co-hosting these things together now. So when we come up with a really good answer and a really quick and easy way to do this, we'll let you know. But a lot of Google searching and trying to figure out what platform you want to work with is going to get you there. I mean, there's platforms like Crypto.com, Rarible, OpenSea. Don't use OpenSea. Oh God, it sucks.
Oh, I look, when I make a suggestion here, and I actually can hear now, which is fantastic. And I'm sorry, but I don't know what happened there. When I make a suggestion about this, I always say, what do you want to buy? What do you want to trade?
Right.
Because you also think about like there are specific marketplaces for like cards, like
Yeah.
collectible cards, and there are some that really are like more for art. Now, OpenSea is good for a bunch of them, but still centralized. Yeah. Anyway, I just say, what do you
Yeah.
want to sell? And then there's a lot of, or what do you want to look at or buy? And then that's the type of marketplace you might want to look at.
Yeah, it's mostly like digital abstract and acrylic, like abstract that I would be like scanning in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Selling.
literally the exact like example that brought us all here.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and selling too is really interesting because we talked a lot earlier, and I don't know if you guys got to talking about this, but with selling NFTs, but like proof of work versus proof of stake. Like some NFT artists are only selling on proof of stake because that is a decision that they've made. They don't want to put it on a proof of work. Proof of work would be Ethereum. So these people are purposely going against like Ethereum NFTs so that they can sell on the carbon neutral proof of stake. Now some people don't care and they want to be on the Ethereum network, and the Ethereum network is going to be the most widely used right now, and so people that are because it's the most widely used, it gives it more validity, right? So there's some people that will only really want to trade or buy NFTs on Ethereum. So I think there's a couple of layers of decisions there of like even selling and buying, of where you want to list. You don't want to list one piece on multiple marketplaces though, because that's just going to devalue your whatever it is that you're putting up on that marketplace. Members, you have to work with scarcity. Scarcities will be still important if you're selling. Hope I didn't just go in like 3 different directions there.
That's great. No, thank you both for answering that. That's a great answer.
Wonderful. So glad I was able to hear again. I was like, I felt so lost. I was like, wherever we go. Cool.
I don't know who was talking. Is it Captain Waffles or me?
Captain Waffles is the guy. He's the only guy in here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He had mentioned like Cardano and Wax, and I had missed the other ones and I could like look up.
It was like Akash, wasn't it? Is that what you're
No, no,
mentioning?
okay. We actually, me and Lisa, or Lisa and I, however you prefer to put it. Let me grab the whiteboard. We kind of made a big list of them. Um, so big primary platforms that are fairly easy to mint on are going to be like Rarible, which is going to be Ethereum. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like using Rarible, but it does work. You can get it done quick and dirty.
Rarible has Flow though. Rarible, I think
Yep.
Flow is a proof of stake. So you can mint and buy on a proof of stake network with using Rarible.
Yeah. So you can do that. You can work on Solana, Cardano, Wax, like you mentioned already. I'm trying to think what else has good. Um, Polygon is a really
Mm,
interesting one. And
yes.
I doubt that Lisa has really gone into layer one versus layer two blockchains.
No.
Um,
Ooh, good.
yeah, that's a
That's a
fairly big
really good
discussion.
point.
But
Mm-hmm.
um, Polygon is basically a way to mint NFTs and tokens on Ethereum using their security as a network, but circumventing their gas fees and their prices by using the Polygon network on top of the Ethereum network. Um, and there's a bunch of instances of that, that we can get into, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a pretty good
Yeah, where
place,
they like batch transactions through the Ethereum network, so it like saves on gas fees and
right?
that sort of stuff. Is that what they
Um,
do? I think they do that at some level.
Essentially what they're doing is they are building a larger
No, maybe not.
transaction that is getting kind of
Right.
zipped down to a smaller transaction that is referenced on their network. So it's like
Right.
it's using a hash pointer to point to the Polygon, which then has a larger block, because Ethereum is by code limited to a certain block size, which is how much data is available, and data is what limits the number of transactions per block, which is how fast it can move the network.
Mm-hmm.
That's another very large conversation.
And back to the data and storage costs money.
Right. And here's a really a big phrase that I like to make sure that people understand in crypto. Code is law, and that is kind of the base of what makes all of this work. Is that the code is written and it cannot be changed without approval of every network validator up to a certain percentage, whatever it is written as. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes all of the world go round, is the fact that everything is set in stone and it has to be that way. Looking for our list of markets and places to mint. Where is it? Where is it? Do. Um, Dude, I had
Right.
like 10 bajillion tabs open one day and was like just writing these all down, and I don't remember where they went.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I just got the weirdest email.
Yeah, I don't know where that went. Damn. But it's something I'm always researching, because making easy minting and having a platform for that where you can do it safely using code that's already written into the front end of the
Oh,
websites.
hash lips or like that type of stuff. Oh, yeah, I'm with you. Gosh,
I'm
that's
talking
tough.
minting
That's
tools.
we're like you're at like level 4 right now. That's we're even past you're past lazy minting at this point.
Yeah,
You're
yeah. That's what I was just looking
so
at.
we've even told them the difference between lazy minting and like oh what do they call it, real minting? I don't know, minting, lazy minting and minting.
Yeah, that's just kind of what we
Um,
called it right here on the
Lazy
page.
minting is paying somebody else to create the contract. I mean, essentially, like that would be OpenSea. You
Yep,
don't have to
or
worry about what the
Rarible.
contract set. Like you don't have to create the contract. Like none of that.
Yep.
But now you don't have to go. You don't have to sell through a market. I think we have to state that right here and right now. You do not have to sell through a market.
Oh, absolutely. And it's
Um,
preferable that you don't.
right. And I say that, but does it add more complications? Do you have to write your own, smart contract and
Yes.
make sure that it's on the right blockchain? Yes. However, I just want to put that out there that there's no limitation here. You do not have to use a market if you do not, if you like want to go crazy and just say, I'm going full crypto.
Full crypto. That's where I'm
That's what they're
headed.
doing.
Which
And
chat?
that's what actually, when that's not, when you see people releasing NFTs via their website, that's what that looks like. That's what we mean by that. So you'll see people releasing NFTs on a website or through a market, but lazy minting would be them releasing it through a market, and regular minting would be through like minting through their own website. That's be the difference. He's talking about like real minting. Like what are
Right.
they? It's got to be a word for it. It can't be like real minting and lazy
Well, I
minting.
mean, we can
It's got
come
to
up
be
with our
like
own. We came up with metaphysical yesterday. Oh, I meant to edit that chat more, but there you go. I kind of blended what's in that list with blockchains and platforms. And there's going to be multiple platforms on each blockchain, so you don't have to use just one. Like Rarible is something that mints onto Ethereum the same way
good
that
point
OpenSea would mint onto Ethereum for
to
you.
Ethereum. Good point.
But yeah.
So the marketplace, the marketplace is also going to determine potentially, well, not potentially, but is going to determine what crypto or what blockchains they use, right?
Yeah.
Or crypto they're trading with.
They
Most
may
cases,
offer you multiple blockchains. I've not I've not dealt with either of those in a
like
while. But
Solana has their own marketplace, Cardano has their own marketplace, and
right.
then Ethereum, for example, because it is the most widely used, is
Ethereum. Sorry.
Ethereum. What did I say? I'm getting
Ether. I love saying Ethereum. It
Ethereum. Did
just
I
makes me
say?
fucking
I'm
giggle.
very Midwest.
I
I'm
think you
saying
said Ethereum.
probably it sounds like something.
I love
But
it.
then a lot of marketplaces will be based in that, and then they have an alternate proof of stake model attached to it because they don't want to lose that as proof of stake business.
Yeah.
Which sounds really weird, but it's true. Like there are people that just do not want to buy on Ethereum,
Mm-hmm.
and
I don't.
more and more people are going to do, and more people are doing that. You know, because Ethereum's expensive, and and honestly, Ethereum's not meant to do what we're doing on it. It's not. It's meant to be really transactionary for like business, not for like randos like us getting on there and making NFT projects. That's really not what Ethereum was meant for. But that's where we're at in this world. And what does that mean for the future of the blockchains? Well, I think that means that NFTs may be moving somewhere, or the demand for NFTs away from these proof of work blockchains will be very high.
Absolutely. And it very much seems like, and Bitcoin is a monster that is very, very stubborn, but it very much seems like most proof of work chains are going to move to proof of stake or some other consensus mechanism that we haven't heard of or come up with yet.
Right.
And that's just kind of the magic of all of this, is that it can all change.
Yeah, that is the chaos of crypto. But I think that's the fun of it, though, is that it's all so new, and so like the future is happening in the moment, like as we're watching it happen. It's really wild. It's like happening as we're watching it happen. Are we blobbing? We're just blobbing away.
We are. Yeah.
I feel like we do this. This is probably what we get ourselves into. All
back
right.
to questions.
Sorry, y'all.
I enjoy it.
We just blab on and on.
This is what you can look forward to on our podcast too.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be checking that out.
Most of the time, you can't hear me, or I'm like way too close to the video. Like I'm almost wondering if we shouldn't turn the video off and just do audio and make sure the audio works.
I know, right?
Yeah. So we're getting better. I swear. Each time we get a little bit better.
That last one was perfect. Like we did a really great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like we both sounded good. Like there, although you were doing the techno cat thing where you were like up in the camera and like bobbing around and look at things. I was just like, that image just came to my mind of
So
that cat.
I know, and like it zooms in up on me. I don't know if you noticed that, but it zooms so far in up on me.
I know, and
I
I've
am not
changed
like that. It
your
is
window
not
a
like
bunch.
that. Okay. Because I am like 3 feet away from my computer, and it
You,
looks like I'm literally 3 inches away from
yeah,
the screen. Oh God. All right, I'm
drives
getting
me
loopy.
bonkers.
But this
So
has been really fun though. Thank you for staying, and I really hope this was valuable.
hell yeah.
It was.
I
Thank
think we had a
you.
really good time here.
Ah.
Yeah,
Hope
So
I
you
did.
had some drinks, and hopefully, if you did drink, you're feeling good right now.
Oh, yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah.
I got lost in my tabs. Sorry.
All right.
Guess
Well,
I
I'm gonna.
popped in late.
Oh, you're fine. We just want to make sure that it's valuable, and you're probably wondering what the heck was happening. Um, I was able to kind of describe what was going on in the beginning, but um, he has joined us because he's been exceptionally supportive. We've been doing a lot of podcasts. He's exceptionally supportive of this community, and he wanted to come in and stream it tonight. And I thought that sounds super cool. And lo and behold, he was just good to tap in. So I appreciate him being here. But just to kind of give you an idea of what he's doing here and what's going on.
So should we not get used to seeing Captain Waffles?
I
I'll be
Or
around.
will probably, yeah.
Yeah, and if you need anything, feel free to at me in the chat. And I'll pop in. I'm always on Discord. It's just I've got probably 30 servers that I kind of flip between, and there's like maybe 2 that I use voice chat in. So if you need something, feel free. If Lisa's not around, I just poke through and I'll make sure that nothing's burning and on fire.
yeah, of course. And if you guys think of any other servers, I'm only in this server.
Oh,
Yeah. So
Okay.
let me know.
that would be
Yeah.
a good thing to explore because I don't really I have only one server that I would potentially suggest to anybody, and that is it's called the NFT calendar, and I could
Drop the
because
link.
it actually is a calendar of a lot of different releases for NFTs. Even if you're not into it, you can just kind of see what's going. I like to just kind of watch what's going on in that world, even if I don't like buy or anything yet. Well, let me share it. That would be the only one that I know that I would be like really comfortable being like, yeah, here, because other ones are like I'm in a weird.
That's okay.
I'm probably gonna leave those.
Yeah.
That's a
We
good conversation, though.
Right. So we were talking about this yesterday,
Let me
Lisa
find
and
this.
I, because she actually wasn't even aware of this.
Oh,
For in each individual server that you join, if you right click on the little bubble on the far left side on the desktop version, or hold down on the server bubble on the phone, the mobile version, it'll pull up a little menu. You can go down, it's about the third one down, and it says privacy settings. You can actually set it so that individuals from that server are not capable of DMing you. And that's how I have mine set up for just so I don't get tons and tons of messages from random people. However, if you at me, this server, I do have at mention notifications turned on, so I will notice that and I will come back and respond to you. And if we need to DM, I'll go from there. It's a safety thing because you can replicate people's accounts really, really easily to the point where it's indistinguishable. And so I just keep that all turned off until somebody says, "Hey, can I DM you?" And I'll say yes, and then I'll DM them, just for safety. So that's just something to keep in mind for general crypto safety and
that's
internet
smart.
safety.
Yeah, Discord. There's a lot of wild things going on in Discord right now.
Yeah. Hopefully this server doesn't get to that point.
And a lot of people are like, Lisa, you should move this to Twitter Spaces, and I'm thinking I would love to, but how do we get everybody to move over there? And maybe I just announce it through here and put the link to the Twitter Space, but then I have to make sure they all have Twitter, and I guess
And that's pretty much exactly
it's a
all you
whole
can
new
do.
level.
Because you can't port the sound
You
to
can't.
Twitter or anything like that. Like you literally have to take your phone and set it on your desk, and that is it. You can't use your Bluetooth devices, at least not on Android. Like
that's why it's wild to me that Twitter Spaces is so highly used in the crypto and NFT space because it just doesn't work that way.
No, it really doesn't work very well, but it gives people the feeling of talking directly to these companies rather than, a bot or like having to go
True, and then
through.
not having to go into Discord, and Discord adoption is it's pretty tough. I will say. I mean,
Oh
getting
yeah,
folks in here, getting everybody in here, and then getting them involved. It's I'm just very
yeah.
thankful. Anybody y'all can even come. I think it's just and I'm not really great at like keeping the community talking every day either, and that's my fault. I'm not great at that.
Crypto discords are honestly one of my favorite sources of information. If anytime I find a new project, it's the first place I go, and they'll always have, just like Lisa's does, they'll have a set of like FAQ at the top that only they can put information into, so it's a locked chat. They'll have like official links. Links are very dangerous in the crypto
Hmm.
space, so getting official links
Yes.
from the project that you're interested in directly from them as an official source is very valuable. Um, and you can talk directly to people who work for those projects, actual devs, community moderators, people who are actively working on the project. So it's a little bit more to get into it and be able to talk to people, but I really like it.
Okay.
It has its own value. Yeah.
Mm,
So we're dropping links in the lounge just so you all know.
great.
He dropped a link to the Cardano tools. That's one of the proof of stake blockchains that we talked about. And then I did to the NFT calendar. And I don't know if the NFT calendar's Ether only or if it's, I think there's actually calendars for each blockchain. But they say in their Discord how many people use their platform, and it's like 600,000 use their website, and there's 47,000 people in their Discord. So it's you can see how widely used the calendar is, at least.
Yeah.
I just got both of these. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And a lot of what I do too is kind of like stalk what people do. Like I'll go look, how are they releasing it? I'm not saying like the first person you click is like the right one, but like what I would do is I like to just go into a couple of different projects and see like how are they releasing it? Are they releasing it through a single one of them? Are they releasing a whole collection? How are they? There's you can creep on some people and get some information on their projects that allow you to apply them to your projects too. Were you looking for something? I feel like you were looking for something.
I kind of was, and I kind of just like,
Yeah.
so, yep. That's just what
Okay.
happens
Well,
around this time of the evening. So,
brain starts farting out. I'm
yeah.
with you. All right. Well, listen, if you're here and you're able next week, we'll be here at the same time. I'll set up another invite, and we'll be here, and I'll see you then.
Bam. Sounds good.
You guys so much. I learned so much tonight.
Oh,
Way more
good.
than I thought.
Yay!
Awesome. That's
I
the
know you were
best.
like she heard the same presentation, I think, on the other stuff like 3 times.
Yeah.
So this is
Cheers, everybody.